Welcome to How You Livin', a transformative podcast featuring best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and minister, Dr. Rick Rigsby. And now, Dr. Rick.
Hello, friends. Thanks so much for listening. You know, we've spent the last couple of months of 2025 discussing a very critical topic, a topic that I feel is vitally important for all leaders to ponder, reflect upon, and consider. It's the need for genuine leadership, authentic leadership. I want to continue exploring ways we can encourage and empower and impact those that we are privileged to lead. I believe a genuine leader is one who displays influential behavior. Such behavior is so respected that others are not only inspired, but compelled to improve every area of their lives. Today, it appears quite convenient to offer alternatives to genuine leadership. It's the societal tax we pay in a shallow culture, a culture that promotes the trite, a culture that promotes the superficial. Disingenuine leadership, as I call it, is based on impressionistic governance. How one presents overshadows how one prepares. As a result, we become distracted by the frivolous stuff that has very little to do with equipping, encouraging, and inspiring people to be better human beings who achieve at greater levels. Conversely, genuine leadership is intrinsic. It's the fruit of character development, the manifestation of living based on a foundation of good values. Contrary to our current thinking, such leadership is not something you rent or purchase or barter or acquire. It's something you develop. Usually, it's developed in those difficult times, in seasons of uncertainty. If our grandparents and parents taught us anything, it was this simple lesson. Genuine leadership is not something you adorn yourself with on the outside, but rather cultivating values on the inside, values that are forged as a result of living the right way. I believe this is the blueprint that drives positive behavioral change. This fundamental philosophy was driven into me not during my couple of decades in the halls of academia as a graduate student and a college professor, though I thoroughly enjoyed my time in the academy. This philosophy was not introduced to me through my nearly 4 decades of training leaders all over the world, although they've contributed in invaluable ways to my thinking. No, I learned this leadership philosophy in the most unlikeliest of places, friends. I learned that leadership is far more than impressive speaking, far more than attractive dress, far more than status, title, position, even education level. I learned from the unlikeliest of sources what genuine leadership is all about. And along the way, I learned that oftentimes wisdom comes from those unlikely sources. In my case, I learned genuine leadership from the wisdom of my father, the wisest man I've ever met in my life, yet he was a 3rd grade dropout. It was humorous Mark Twain who said on one occasion, "I've never allowed my schooling to get in the way of my education." The most influential man I ever met never made it past grade 3, was hardly known outside of his hometown. However, my father is being quoted on every continent worldwide with simple words like these that he taught me growing up. Son, don't judge people. The moment you judge somebody is the moment you stop impacting them. Or how about this lesson? Son, you'd rather be an hour early than a minute late. It was Aristotle, the great Greek philosopher, who said, "You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence ought to be a habit, not an act." I had no idea at the time in the 50s and 60s and 70s, I was living with a representative of Aristotle who simply said, be an hour early every day. It's not about you, in other words. Be an hour early every day. My father taught me to be kind, even if people weren't kind to me. Be kind to them. He taught me to be a servant, to make sure that my servant's towel was bigger than my ego. It's something I carry this very day. I hold on to the words of that great basketball coach at UCLA, John Wooden. He talked so much and challenged the notion of not being ego-driven with his players. He taught to be a servant, to be a servant. And he taught by example. Now, here's a man that was a basketball coach at a great university, UCLA, won 10 national championships, 7 in a row. But yet, Coach Wooden, throughout the week, would often be found going into the custodian's closet and getting a broom and sweeping his own gym floor. You want to grow your influence? You want to grow your impact? Find your broom. That was my dad. Son, be a servant. Make sure your servant's towel is bigger than your ego. I love the words from that great philosopher, Anonymous, who said on one occasion, ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. Pride is the burden of a foolish person. I had a dear friend who's in heaven now. His name is James Ryle, and he gave the antithesis of pride in a great definition of humility. Listen to James Ryle's definition of humility. Humility, the absolute God-given ability that eliminates the need to prove the worth of who you are and the rightness of what you do. My father would approve of that definition. My father also taught me this, son, if you're going to do a job, do it the right way. Don't ever walk away from a job until you complete that job. And he would drill into me, do it right. It's never wrong. It's never wrong to do things the right way. He would tell me how you do anything is how you do everything. And of course, the greatest lesson my father taught me was to keep standing in light of, regardless of the situation or the circumstances, to keep standing. Influential words by somebody who didn't have a whole lot of education, by someone who was not well known. Influential word. It's no mystery to me why my father's words are impacting people. It's because my dad possessed the key to effective leadership. I believe the central trait for anyone who desires to be the type of leader who impacts, you must have this central trait. It's more important than any other leadership trait. It's influence. Growing one's influence determines the effectiveness of one's leadership, not education, not status, not title, not position, not even experience, but influence. I want you to think about something. My father was a cook. He was a simple cook at a university, California Maritime Academy in Northern California, Vallejo, California. You've heard me mention this story before. He was just one of the several line cooks at this academy. It was an academy still in existence today that trains men and women to go into the maritime industry. A cruise is required to get these young cadets sea ready. My father sailed the world on the training ship Golden Bear. All over the world, my father ventured. Several ports of call during decades of working at Cal Maritime. That was his position. A cook, a simple cook, but he did not allow his position to limit his influence. He developed good habits of living the right way and grew his influence every single day. Did you hear what I said? He developed good habits. It was Samuel Johnson, that 19th century writer and poet, who said on one occasion, "The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken." Make sure every day you are developing good habits that encourage right living. This was my father, and he taught me that influence is the foundation for effective leadership. It's the trademark of leadership. John Maxwell said it best, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Our degree of influence determines the power of our impact. Leaders who insist on making a nice showing, presenting well, They fit well into a shallow, superficial culture that doesn't place a great demand on substance. Looking good and sounding glib, friends, is not impactful leadership, and few will be inspired by your behavior. This is why it's important to construct a solid, common sense approach to the kind of leadership that makes a difference. And that's why over these last several months, we've been discussing some of the basic building blocks, if you will, that construct the foundation for genuine leadership, bricks that I believe are essential to growing influence. And they include growth, the determination, the discipline to grow every single day. I believe effective leaders commit to daily growth. If you're not growing, you're retarding. So be a lifelong learner. The second building block to genuine leadership, preparation. My father would often say, if you don't plan and prepare, you're depending on luck, and luck was not in his vocabulary. Remember, friends, great people do things that other people don't. Great leaders do things that other people won't. Great leaders prepare, and they influence others to do the same. The third building block that establishes the foundation for genuine leadership, disrupting our thinking, disrupting existing paradigms and patterns of thinking and doing. It compels us to be more innovative, to think about what might be and what can be. Without disruptive thinking, our growth potential is limited. We practice existing patterns and we find ourselves in a loop, continuing to get stuck. Authentic, genuine leaders are not afraid to disrupt their own thinking. It's not about comfortable patterns or fixed routines. Leadership is about growing your influence every single day, often during the seemingly mundane episodes of life. And the fourth foundational block, the block we're going to spend some time on, is righteous living. I want to return to righteous living in our next episode. I want to talk about growing values that produce living the right way. Friends, this is so critical to effective leadership, something as simple as living the right way. Every single day, I ask myself one simple question: how am I living? I remind myself every day of the inextricable connection between living the right way and being the best leader I can possibly be. In our next episode, we're going to drill deep into this subject of righteous living. Well, friends, that's going to do it for this episode. Until we meet again, this is Dr. Rick asking the most important question I can ask: how you living?
Are you ready to make an impact in your world right now? Do you want to stop existing and start living your best life right now? Dr. Rick wants to give you the first chapter of his best-selling book, Lessons from a Third Grade Dropout, absolutely free. Just go to www.rickrigsby.com/free gift to get the print or audiobook right now.
This is the podcastfactory.com.